all our wealthies. Welcome back. If you're new here, this is All the Wealth, our wealth building channel. I'm Mical Jeanlys-White, founder and CEO of Wealth More. And with me is our very own
Tanya Frias, head of wealth planning. Happy New Year.
This episode today is dedicated to women and our efforts to build wealth. But before we jump in, we have some exciting news to share. Our community free membership is here. You can download the app, join our Wealth More communities, start getting tips, advice. You'll see us in the app giving more tips and advice. And of course, you can also join any of our premium plans and start investing and working one-on-one with one of our wealth advisors.
Yay! It's a big start to 2025.
And if we might brag a bit, the app is pretty amazing. Okay.
Yes, it is.
I'm excited, Tanya, to be talking about women and our efforts to build wealth because, frankly, it's only been since 1972 that women have even had equal rights to having a bank account.
Yeah.
But here we are in 2025, and women essentially retire with 30% less in wealth relative to men.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, that's a pretty big number.
It's a huge number.
A lot of it, and I sort of want to echo that we hear a lot of stuff out there that would suggest that this is how women spend, etc., that sort of contributes to the wealth gap. But the reality is the wealth gap for women is largely driven by the pay gap.
Yeah.
Women on average make 82 cents to the dollar of what a male earns. And over time, that number really adds up. It adds up to anywhere between $400,000 to $1.2 million in difference, and not a positive difference, a negative difference when it comes to building wealth.
It's a lot of money.
It's a ton of money, right? Like most people are trying to retire with $1 million, and that wealth gap is impacting us to the tune of anywhere between 400,000 to 1.2 million bucks. If you are a Black woman, that's roughly $1 million. If you are a Hispanic woman, that number looks closer to $1.2 million. If you are an Asian island Pacificer, that number looks like $400,000. These are big numbers that are impacting not just our retirement, but frankly, the things we want to do today.
Right. It impacts retirement. It impacts the implied caregiving duties of women, right? While they're working and in retirement. So it informs a lot of just the lack of flexibility and resources in terms of taking care of ourselves and other people.
Yeah. And so the first thing I would say, particularly as we are in January and people are getting bonuses and sort of looking at career moves that you might make in 2025. I can't encourage women enough to advocate for themselves when it comes to pay, be it salary increases, negotiating your salary up front. I certainly saw this in my corporate days where women were less inclined to negotiate an offer. They would tend to accept the offer that was given versus coming back. Versus when I would make an offer to men, they always came back and negotiated.
Yeah. And women also, they look at a job description. If they don't have every single qualification, they won't even apply. It's not the same for men. So definitely feeling empowered in those conversations, doing some research, right? So I guess the fear is that someone comes back and says no. But it's not like women are asking for something that they're not entitled to. Maybe having the data to prove like, hey, this is what the going rate for these roles are. And making sure that you have that support will maybe make you feel more empowered to negotiate in those instances. But just know that employers are expecting you to negotiate.
Yes, please, please. We expect you to negotiate. No one ever, I guarantee you, the offer that's presented to you is likely at the mid-range of what that hiring manager has to play with. They are
Yeah.
never coming to you with, this is the highest we can offer for this role. So if you are
And
back,
yeah, I have seen roles where they will, if they're not willing to negotiate, they will say it in the job description. It will be said, right? This is what we're offering. That's it. We don't negotiate. And in those roles, they're usually pretty high paying roles. They'll say, hey, we're being generous. We're not doing this with you. But that's rare that you see that. Every other role you can expect and it's anticipated a negotiation.
so rule number one, ladies, negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. And not just when you are about to accept the job, but even after you've been in the job. One of the biggest things is that generally the new people get higher comp than the existing people. When you're at a job for a while, those little like 1, 2, 3% increases generally don't keep up with the new person that's coming in. And hence to why people at times are like, hey, why are new people getting paid more than I am? You have to negotiate. You have to get on top of it. And as women, we have that extra amount of work to make sure we are getting equally compensated.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. I think the other thing that impacts our wealth is that women are generally the caregivers.
Yeah.
And we often step out of the workforce for a period of time and come back in. And often when we come back in, it comes with taking a pay cut.
Yeah, or I remember when I was on maternity leave, I happened to work for a firm at the time that had a policy in which we were only allowed, we were in production, so which means that I was in more of a sales revenue generating role. And while I was on maternity leave, I was only allowed to, my comp during that time was just whatever the short-term disability was for the state. So while on maternity leave, I made about 20% of my average annual comp. And what does that mean, right? I had to save up to be on maternity leave to ensure that I could cover my expenses. So things like maternity leave policy are important. Things have changed since then, but having awareness on what this means for you when you have to step away from your role full time to take care of a new baby or a family member and what the expectations are when you return. What does that look like for your compensation?
Yeah. So I know we sort of started off with like the two big watch outs or things that women should be mindful of. But I want to talk about the things that are sort of women's superpowers when it comes to building wealth. Contrary to all of the nonsense you guys hear out there, we're really good with money.
Yeah.
And you guys, like women, we do not outspend men. We spend equal, and some would say less than men because they make more than we do. Two, we're really good with credit scores. Our credit scores are the same as our male counterparts. And when it comes to debt, when we have more debt, it's because we pursued higher education.
Yeah.
Pretty darn good stuff.
Yeah.
And higher education should also lead to some higher earnings.
It should.
That's really good news.
Yeah.
And here's some more good news. We're really good investors. We tend to see better returns when we invest than our male counterparts. Why is that? Women tend to be buy and hold investors, and we tend to even stick it out even when the market gets a little hectic, which I find kind of interesting as women are often pegged as like emotional. But apparently as investors, we're more practical than emotional, which is really.
Oh, I think women tend to be, and this just comes from my days of having my practice for a very long time. Women tend to want to be informed investors. They want to understand why and the how of what an investment is, why it's important, less focused on, sort of what the hot new thing is. You definitely, I know with my women-led relationships, they were very much interested in learning and 100% understanding how this investment affects them. How does it help them and what it's comprised of? It's definitely a more collaborative engagement.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty methodical. We are willing to do the research. We are not, once we have that research and that education, it's informing our decisions. Where we need some help is to invest more. We do see men investing more than women. And so if you can just think about what that would mean, we're already very good at it, but just investing more, that impact to our wealth growth would be pretty dramatic.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say to focus on the fact that you can and that you're good at it. I mean, I have certainly worked with clients, couples, and there's usually one person that's more interested or makes more of the money decisions. And that could be the husband or wife, right? If it's a married couple. But what I would say in those instances, it's okay to have someone take the lead, but it's not an excuse to not be informed, right? Both parties have to understand and participate in their investments and their wealth building. For obvious reasons, if something happens to one spouse, the other one is then left with, feeling lost because they don't understand or they deferred to this one person so much that they don't know how to proceed, or it's hard for them to proceed when it comes to their finances.
Yeah. And I think many of us grew up as not seeing or being, sent messages that, hey, women aren't as good as math or good with numbers, or, the narrative of like the overspending woman who is too much on fashion and frivolous things. And as sort of like the male figures being the more money conscious investor persona, if you will. And maybe that to a certain degree impacts our view about money, or whether or not we are, one, confident about it, but two, maybe even feeling that we have a right to talk about money. Right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I always felt that money was viewed as like a more masculine thing,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh, you know, talk about money. Right? And certainly finance found me and I love it. But I can certainly relate to, hearing, if my husband goes and plays golf, they will talk about stock tips. And I certainly don't feel that my interactions as often with other women where we get to a conversation about investing and stock picks and what's happening in the market.
Even when it comes to spending, I mean, it's likely that the women are spending more because they're taking care of the household, right? They are, I mean, I don't know if my fiance it has any awareness of when we need paper towels, when we need Windex. He's not buying these things, right? But he'll go on a snowboarding trip, which I mean, these trips, these golf trips, they're expensive things. It's not that I'm spending more or women are spending more than men. It's just we're spending money on different things. And it gives this perception of, that the Amazon boxes keep coming, but it's likely that it's because you're buying soap or these things that we need. So this idea that, women are spending more, they're also likely in charge of taking care of a whole household of people and all the things that come along with that.
It's more of like a communal spend versus just for my own personal needs. But on that point of the power of investing, right? If I think about the really positive things of both genders, so if your spouse is really good at investing or staying on top of it, but they are more likely to exit the market when things get a bit tumultuous, that sort of opposites working together can really help you guys build more wealth.
Yeah, having two different personalities, right? You and we all have investing personalities. I am for sure a buy and hold person. I rarely look at my investments. My fiance is very different. He is very much looking at trying to figure out what the new hot thing is and very much on trends and new companies. And we just have very different personalities, but both have their advantages. And together, exactly what you said, they complement each other.
And I can't echo enough the importance of getting started early. And this is something that pretty much we see across genders, like people are not investing early. They are waiting, believing that they need to have like this really large sum of money before you can start investing. And they're missing out on easily a decade of compounding benefit of investing. So I can't say this loud enough, even if it's just 25 bucks a week, a month that you can invest, just building that habit and growing that number over time will do you well. Like it's never too early to start investing.
I agree. And I think I've said this before on one of our other recordings. Bonus time is bonus retirement time, right? You have the opportunity and the option to allocate more of that check specifically to your retirement account. It's still going to you. It's not going into your checking account, but it's going to you in a tax advantaged way. It's much better than that. Those additional funds end up in your retirement account than, off to Uncle Sam. It's a great opportunity to really get a leg up on your retirement savings by taking that additional allocation into your retirement account instead of just getting the 100% payout and that being taxed at a higher rate than your normal your salary.
Tax returns, right? People are starting to file their tax returns. If you have a return, you get a return, is a great opportunity to start investing and to sort of like literally watch that discrete amount of money. If you're like, oh, I'm getting a return for $1,000 and I'm going to invest it, you get to actually see that. You can literally mark that, start investing it, and watch it over time so you can see the impact of that versus like, I wish I had done that, or I can't remember what happened with that return.
Yeah. And also breaking sort of the bad habits, right? I grew up with around people who a tax return meant vacation. It meant spending it on a thing that's fleeting. You're not, investing in yourself or in your wealth. Getting a return consistently is another indication that you're paying too much. You're paying too much. You could be putting that into your retirement account. But
money the government has been holding on to all year that
interest free.
Right? I think it's also important that we delve into the notion of having other people in your circle, having other women who are also investing, and encouraging women to start those conversations, right? Talk about it with your female friends, sisters, aunts, mothers, like daughters, like normalizing this conversation around wealth and investing and creating sort of like your community of other women who are investing. Obviously, you can do it at Wealth More. We did that. And certainly bring your girlfriends with you. But we do want that conversation to just be free flowing, that it's something that we just talk about. Like, are you investing? Did you see what happened in the market? How are you thinking about your retirement? Because money is just such a big part of our lives.
I agree. I had a conversation with a friend of mine late last year, and it just happened to come up, the topic of student loans, and this person just approached their student loans a different way than I did, not the best way. And I felt bad because I was thinking to myself, maybe if I would have been more upfront, right, about how I can help her, or that I was open to a conversation. I think people think because I'm a financial planner, I've been one for a very long time, that a conversation means that they have to pay me. I don't know what the idea is, but I felt bad because had I known, I would have been able to help her make a better decision. But I think it's more along what you're saying, normalize having the conversation consistently. Right? Not only when there's a problem, because when there's a problem, there may, it's more likely that someone would reach out. But can we prevent, right, these pitfalls? Can we help each other build wealth consistently just by being comfortable having a conversation?
I want women to have, just like I will easily drop in a group chat, like, love this new moisturizer, or
yeah,
right, like, love this new whatever hey, got this amazing outfit, love it, or whatever, these shoes, whatever it is, right? I want to normalize that. Like, hey, started looking at this, whatever portfolio, or hey, upped my investments because this is a great buying opportunity given the state of the market, or the market has dipped. And hey, are we at least taking a look at that? It's supposed to be just as often and as natural to have.
And especially with your women friends who are not well versed in finances, right? I think it's an easier conversation. I have friends that are in the same industry as me, so those conversations happen more naturally. But I think opening it up, right, to folks who just maybe this is not their field, or maybe just doesn't have the same finance or background, and just so that we can learn from each other,
Yeah.
and help each other build together.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it is not as scary as it may seem. We are very good at it anyway. We're good with are doing all the right things. The things we need to do are, one, continue to advocate, make sure you can get as close to closing that pay gap as possible, and investing more often, starting earlier, and creating like a group around you, women, men, family members, friends that are also thinking about it and can support you. And of course, you can always come do it here at Wealth More and bring all of them with you.
Yes, please.
Yes. But that just sort of making it as normal as talking about the weather.
Yep. And be encourage each other. It's an exciting thing. I mean, I want my friends and family to do well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they want that for me. Do it together.
And it's interesting, Tanya, because I feel like that dynamic of that you have with that classmate who you would have, you wish she had come to you. I think I can see those same sort of dynamics even in my own relationships where it's like, I'm surprised people don't come to me more. I talk about it all the time.
I think it's funny because we have talked about this in the past. Like, I've been in finance for a very long time, and my family has always thought I work in a bank. I don't know, maybe they thought I was a teller all these years. I don't know I think part of it too is this is why Wealthmore is so important, right? The concept of advice is so foreign to people in my life, or the idea that you go to someone and you enter in a relationship where they help you build wealth. It's just not a normal concept. So even when I say this is what I do, there's no connection, right? They don't really understand what it is that I've been doing all these years.
I will have people go to me, oh, I don't want to bother you. I know this is outside of your day. I'm like, no, I don't stop. I don't only talk about wealth from 9 to 5. Talk about
yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, our kids are testament, aren't they? Right?
Yes. I mean, it's all around us, right? When you think about walking into your favorite retailer, your favorite grocer, these are all investment opportunities. We as consumers are fueling this market, and it should be very natural to just talk about or observe things.
Yeah. Like unit cost, price.
Or even, I like to observe brands, just I'm sure all of you out there engage with different brands and company decisions, like, be it new products that Apple rolls out, decisions made at like your local coffee shop, be it Starbucks, like all of these things are part of the investing and learning journey. And I bet you could turn any one of those into a conversation about investing.
Yes.
Went to Target.
Spending.
Absolutely.
Spending. How does this brand want you to spend, right? How are they nudging you to do things in a certain way, which may not be beneficial to you, right? Figuring and having awareness of how you're spending your money and why.
And I always encourage people, if you want to get smarter or just want to get a little closer understanding individual investments, just research some of your favorite brands, right? Like, what to Starbucks today? Like, wonder how this company is doing. Wonder what they're rolling out. Like, how are they staying competitive in the market? Hey, went to Target today, same thing. Or about to buy a new Apple device, thinking about, this is a company, this is a stock. I'm a customer. How do I feel about this as a potential investment as well?
I agree.
Well, ladies, and even the men listening,
Yes.
and I'm sure there are plenty of men listening to this as well. Investing is a superpower, but it is one that we should all put the energy and start investing early and doing it on a regular basis. For women, we are going to live longer. We are certainly addressing a pay gap, but we're also very good with money and can certainly find other ways to create natural systems around ourselves to help us on our wealth building journey.
Yeah. You get started today at Wealthmore for free.
Absolutely. That's right. Join our community, download the app. We'd love to see the women's group be one of our largest communities. So let's do it. Ladies, men, until next time, all the wealth.
All the wealth.